Hi, thought I'd share another story with you. This is a story, well, about someone who became the best musician in the world, probably. His name was Schenkin, and when he was a boy, well, he began to play the violin. But the violin, well, it's a very hard instrument to play. But day after day, night after night, he would practice. He would practice before he went to school. He would practice as soon as he went back home from school, and he would practice in the evenings just before bed. He was always playing his violin. Well, when he got a little bit older, he would be invited to the odd birthday party to play that violin, or fiddle as he called it, and he could play a fairly good tune. It didn't hurt your ears too much. It was quite good. Well, he got a little bit older and a little bit older, and he got better and better at playing that violin until he was invited to play at people's weddings. He was invited to play in the village hall. He was invited to play at all manner of things, fetes and festivals, and quite soon the word spread all around where he lived that he was the best fiddle player that there was. Now, his name was Schenkin, and he was, well, he didn't like to boast very much, and he didn't really think that he was that good. But everyone around said, no, Schenkin, you are the best fiddle player that there is all around. Well, he didn't really believe it. Well, the years went by and he began to get more and more work, and he began to think, well, maybe I am quite a good fiddle player. Well, one day he was out. He'd been invited to play the violin at a party several hills over in the distance, and he'd been paid fairly well for playing a really good party, dance tunes and what have we, and tunes for people to sing. And well, he was walking back down the mountainside, and he could see the lush green valley out in front of him, and he was walking that path back to the little village where he lived, back to his wife, for now he was a young man with a wife. And he was walking along, and he looked to his right, and then he did a double take, and he thought, well, that wasn't there this morning. And he looked again, and there in the distance was a castle. But it was a small castle, about this big, but it was beautiful. The roof was tiled with pure gold. The windows were made of silver and studded with diamonds and pearls. And the door had a door frame that was silver, and it too was studded with diamonds and pearls. And he looked at this as it sparkled and twinkled in the sunlight, and he thought, I wonder what that is. And just then the door opened, and out stepped a tiny little fairy king. He looked wonderful, did this king. He had a nice pointy gold crown, beautiful purple robes, and a big bushy grey beard. And he looked across at Schenkin and he said, Schenkin, come, come. And then Schenkin looked, and he couldn't believe what he was seeing. He was seeing the king of the fairies, and he was inviting him over. And the king said, come, Schenkin, come, come. And Schenkin walked across to him, and he looked down, and the fairy king said, come and play music for us, for it is the fairies' time of the year when we have a big party to celebrate the spring. Come and play for us. Well, I'd like to, said Schenkin, but I can't get into your castle. I'm human size and you're fairy size. And before he knew it, he was suddenly inside that castle, the same size as the fairies. Well, he looked all around him, and it was so beautiful in there. The ceilings were all hand painted in between every rafter. Beautiful decoration. There were candelabras that hung from the ceiling of pure silver with candles, hundreds of candles all around, lit up the grand hall. There were grand trimmings and hangings on the walls. Everything was gold and silver and purple and red and just beautiful. And then there was the fairy folk themselves. Well, the king, as I said, he had a beautiful golden crown and purple robes and a big grey beard. And there were other fairy men there dressed similarly but without a crown. But they had purple robes and beautiful bright red robes and beautiful dark green robes. And they looked magnificent. And the fairy women, well, they looked even finer than the men in their wonderful fairy dresses, full of diamonds and pearls and glitter and just wonderfulness. And there was a table laid with all the food that you could imagine. And the fairy king said, before you sit down and join us for something to eat, Shenkin, play us a jig, play us a fast jig so that we can dance. So Shenkin took his fiddle and he got on that little stage and he began to play a fast jig. Well, the fairies, the men and the women, they joined together in partnerships and they danced and twirled and twirled and twirled and danced and they had a wonderful jig. Play us another one, said the king. And Shenkin played another one and there was clapping, 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 as they danced and danced and danced and danced. And they danced another fine tune and they said, give us another one, Shenkin. And he played a third tune and on they went, dancing, 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 until they were quite exhausted. And the king said, Shenkin, play us a slow dance. So Shenkin slowed it down and he played the slowest tune that he knew on his fiddle. And the fairies, well, they danced lovely and slowly and twirled and waltzed around and around that grand hall. Well, they danced so much, they were exhausted and they needed a drink and something to eat. And they said to Shenkin, Shenkin, please join us at the head of the table. Eat whatever you wish. Well, when Shenkin looked at that table, there was every food that you could imagine. What do you imagine was there? Come on, what's your favourite food? Well, that was there. There was huge piles of that. There was big plates. Just imagine your favourite food. Well, all of those things were there. And your favourite drink? Well, those drinks were there too. Well, Shenkin, he ate his fill of food and he drank his fill of drink and he had a wonderful time chatting and talking to the fairies and the fairy king himself, who said, Shenkin, you are a fine fiddle player and this is the best party that we have ever had. You are such a fine fiddle player. We want to reward you handsomely. But, said the fairy king, before we do, we need you to make a promise. Whatever you do, you mustn't tell anyone that we have given you a reward. You mustn't tell anyone that you have seen the fairy folk. I can do that, said Shenkin. Cross my heart. And with that, the king put on the table a leather purse, and it had lots of money in it. And the fairy king said, there are 20 gold coins there for you, a fortune. This is to say thank you for playing at our party. Well, Shenkin ate some more. He drank a bit more. And eventually, while everyone was chitter-chatting, chatter-chitting, he fell asleep. When he woke up, he was in, well, a wood like this. There was no fairy castle. It was just in a woodland. And he felt around for his fiddle, and he still had his fiddle. And he felt around and he still had the purse of gold. And he looked in to check, and sure enough, inside there were 20 solid gold coins worth a fortune. Well, he tied it up and he walked back home. But of course he thought as he got to the door, I can't tell my wife where I got this money from. I can't tell her that it's from the fairies. I'll have to hide it. So he went in and he went quickly upstairs. And as he was trying to find somewhere to put it, he could hear his wife crying downstairs. So he took out one solid gold coin and put it in his pocket, and he hid the rest. He lifted up a carpet, he lifted up a floorboard, and he put it underneath the floorboards. And he put the floorboard down and the carpet back down, and he went down with the coin in his pocket. And his wife was crying at the dinner table. Why are you crying? Said Shenkin, my dear wife. Oh, Shenkin, we have no more money. We have bills for this, bills for that, bills for the other. We will get thrown out of our house. We have nothing to eat. I don't know what to do. She cried. Shenkin felt for the coin in his pocket and he moved it around and folded that over and over in his pocket and thinking, shall I? And then he took out the gold coin and he put it on the table. And his wife saw it. A solid gold coin. This will pay all our bills and food for several weeks. Where did you get it from? It doesn't matter where I got it from. Just take it, my dear. Oh, I'd love to know where you got it from. Doesn't matter where I got it from, said Shenkin. Just take it. I've done very well today with my fiddle playing. Well, his wife couldn't believe it, and she bought lots of food for the house, and she paid for all the bills, and they ate really, really well, and there were no troubles or worries for several weeks. And then things started to get a bit short again. And Shenkin had been out playing at a little party or something where he'd earned a few coins, just a few pennies and not much more. This was long ago, remember, when even a few pennies could buy you a little bit. And he came back in, and once again he found his wife sobbing at the dinner table. What's wrong, my dear? We have no more money. We have no more money. We have bills for this, bills for that, bills for the other. The landlord has threatened to throw us out of the house. What are we going to do? We need more than a few pennies that you've earned today. And his wife couldn't be consoled, and she cried and cried. And Shenkin said, wait there. And he went upstairs, and he lifted up the rug, and he lifted up the floorboard, and he took out another gold coin. And he went downstairs, and he put another gold coin on the table. Shenkin, where did you get this from? Where did you get the last one from? It doesn't matter. I've been rewarded well for my fiddle playing, but you only normally get a few pennies. This is so much money, this will pay all our bills once again. Well, she hugged him and thanked him, and she stopped her crying, and she said, oh, this will keep us going for weeks and weeks and weeks. Well, after a good hearty meal, they went to bed. It was bedtime. And they lay in bed, and before they went to sleep, Shenkin's wife said, Shenkin, where are you getting this gold from? I can't say, said Shenkin. Oh, come on, Shenkin. You are my husband. We don't have secrets, do we? You can tell me, I'm your wife. You don't keep secrets from your wife or from your husband, do you? Tell me, Shenkin, where do you get it from? Well, his wife was so persuasive. He gave in. And he got up out of bed, and he lifted the rug, and he lifted the floorboard, and he took out that purse, and he shook it. And he went over to the bed, and he said, I got it from the fairies, my dear. The fairies paid me handsomely in gold for my fiddle playing. Take a look. And as he turned the purse to empty it out, well, it was a different sound. It wasn't the sound of money that he heard now. It was a clitter, clatter, clitter, clatter, and out popped 18 cockle shells. And his wife looked and said, but they're just cockle shells. And at that moment, Shenkin realised that he'd broken the fairy promise. So be sure, children, if you get to meet a good fairy who rewards you with gold coins, be sure that you don't go and tell lots of people, because the fairies, well, they might change things for you and not in your favour. And that's the story of Shenkin and his wife. Thank you.